Kate Morrison's eyes opened slowly, her head pounding like someone had hit her with a metal bar. The last thing she remembered was running through the dark corridors of the research station on Kepler 442b. The alarms had been screaming, red lights flashing everywhere. Then something had grabbed her from behind, and everything went black. Now she was somewhere else entirely. The walls around her glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to come from inside the metal itself. She tried to move but found her hands locked together with strange silver bands that felt warm against her skin. The bands hummed quietly, sending tiny vibrations up her arms. Kate sat up carefully and looked around. She was in a small room with walls made of some kind of clear material. It looked like glass but felt different when she touched it. Beyond the walls, she could see a long corridor that stretched in both directions. The floor was smooth and dark, and symbols she didn't recognize glowed along the edges. "Great," she whispered to herself, "just great." She had been an engineer for the Earth Defense Force for 6 years. Before that, she had spent 4 years in the military, fixing ships and weapons systems. She had seen plenty of alien technology before, but this was different. This felt old, really old, like it had been here for thousands of years. Heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. Kate moved away from the clear wall and watched as 3 figures approached her cell. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, with long arms and legs. Their skin was covered in scales that changed color as they moved, shifting from dark green to brown to gray. Each one had 6 arms, and their faces were long and narrow like a snake's. The one in the middle wore what looked like a uniform with silver markings. He stopped in front of Kate's cell and studied her with yellow eyes that had no whites. When he spoke, his voice was deep and full of clicking sounds. "The human is awake," he said in English, though his accent made the words sound strange. "Good, we have questions." Kate stood up and faced him. She was much smaller than any of them, but she had learned long ago not to show fear. "I'm Kate Morrison, engineer with the Earth Defense Force. I demand to know why I'm being held here." The alien in the uniform made a sound that might have been laughter. "You demand? You are a prisoner on the Void Talon, human? You have no right to demand anything." "The what now?" Kate asked. "This ship," the alien said. "I am Commander Vexstar of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. You were captured during your pathetic attempt to spy on our operations." Kate remembered now. She had been part of a small team sent to investigate strange energy readings on the research station. They had found evidence that someone had been there before them, someone who had taken important data files. Then the attack had come out of nowhere. "Where is the rest of my team?" she asked. Commander Vexstar's scales shifted to a darker color. "Dead. You alone survived because we need information about your species' defenses. You will tell us about Earth's military capabilities, or you will join your friends." Kate felt a cold knot form in her stomach, but she kept her voice steady. "I won't tell you anything." The commander turned to one of the other aliens. "Lieutenant Grix, prepare the interrogation chamber. We will see how long her defiance lasts." "Lieutenant." Grix was smaller than the commander but looked meaner. His scales were darker, and when he smiled, Kate could see rows of sharp teeth. "With pleasure, Commander. The human will talk soon enough." They walked away, leaving Kate alone again. She sat down on the floor and tried to think. The cell seemed escape-proof, but she had to try something. She was an engineer, after all. There had to be a way to get out. Kate examined the silver bands on her wrists more carefully. They were warm and smooth, with no visible joints or locks. She tried pulling them apart, but they wouldn't budge. She tried hitting them against the wall, but they just absorbed the impact without any damage. "Okay, that's not going to work," she muttered. She moved to the clear wall and ran her hands along its surface. It felt solid, but she noticed that when she pressed on certain spots, the material seemed to respond slightly. It was subtle, but she could feel it giving just a little under her touch. Kate had always been good with technology. Even as a child, she could fix things that other people couldn't. Her father used to joke that she had magic fingers. Now she wondered if that skill might help her survive. She pressed her palm against the wall and concentrated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then she felt a tiny vibration, so small she almost missed it. The wall seemed to recognize her touch, but then the feeling disappeared. Interesting, she said quietly. Hours passed. Kate tried to sleep, but the blue light never dimmed, and the humming from her restraints kept her awake. She wondered if anyone from Earth knew she was missing yet. The research station had been far from the main shipping lanes, and her team wasn't supposed to check in for another 3 days. She thought about her colleagues. Back home, Dr. Elena Rodriguez would be worried. Sick. Elena had been like a mother to her since Kate joined the Defense Force. Captain Jake Sullivan would probably be organizing a search party, but Kate doubted they would find her in time. The sound of footsteps brought her back to the present. Commander Vexstar and Lieutenant Grix were returning, along with 2 other aliens who looked like guards. They stopped outside her cell, and the commander touched a control panel on the wall. "Time for your first lesson in cooperation, human," he said. The clear wall disappeared, and Kate felt a strange tingling sensation wash over her. She tried to step backward, but her legs wouldn't obey her. The restraints on her wrists were doing something to her nervous system, making her body numb and unresponsive. Lieutenant Grix stepped into the cell and grabbed her arm. "Come along, little human. We have much to discuss." As they dragged her down the corridor, Kate noticed something odd. The symbols along the floor seemed to brighten when she passed over them, as if they were responding to her presence. The aliens didn't seem to notice, but Kate filed the information away in her mind. The corridor led to a larger room filled with strange equipment. Metal tables, glowing screens, and devices that looked like they belonged in a nightmare. Commander Vexstar gestured for the guards to place Kate in a chair that molded itself around her body. "Now then," he said, his yellow eyes gleaming, "let us begin with something simple. How many ships does Earth have in its defense fleet?" Kate looked him straight in the eye. "Go to hell." Commander Vexstar's scales turned a deep red color. "Very well. Lieutenant Grix, activate the pain inducers." As the alien reached for a control panel, Kate noticed something that made her heart skip. The panel flickered slightly when she spoke, and for just a moment, the symbols on it rearranged themselves into a pattern that looked almost familiar. Something was happening here, something the aliens didn't understand. And Kate was beginning to think that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as helpless as they believed. Kate woke up back in her cell, every muscle in her body aching. The pain inducers had been worse than anything she had ever experienced. It felt like lightning running through her veins, making her scream until her throat was raw. But she hadn't told them anything. Not one word about Earth's defenses or military capabilities. She touched her throat gingerly. It hurt to swallow, and her voice came out as a whisper. The aliens had finally given up after what felt like hours, dragging her back to her cell when she passed out from the pain. "Stupid alien bastards," she croaked, then immediately regretted speaking. Her throat felt like sandpaper. As soon as the words left her mouth, something strange happened. The blue lights in the walls flickered, growing brighter for just a moment. Kate sat up straighter, ignoring the pain in her body. She had noticed the symbols responding to her before, but this was different. The entire room had reacted to her voice. She looked around carefully. The corridor outside was empty, and she could hear no footsteps. The aliens seemed to work in shifts, and she had learned their patterns over the past day. This was the quiet time, when only a few guards patrolled the ship. Kate cleared her throat, wincing at the pain, and spoke again. "Hello?" The lights flickered again, and this time she was sure she heard something. A soft humming sound, almost like music, came from somewhere in the walls. It was barely audible, but it was definitely there. "What the hell?" she whispered. The humming grew slightly louder, and Kate felt a strange tingling sensation in her chest. It wasn't painful like the restraints had been. This felt warm, almost welcoming. She stood up slowly and walked to the clear wall, placing her hand against it. The wall felt different now. Before, it had been cold and hard. Now it was warm under her palm, and she could feel a gentle vibration running through it. The symbols on the floor outside her cell were glowing brighter than before, pulsing in a rhythm that reminded her of a heartbeat. Kate had always been good with technology, but she had never experienced anything like this. It was as if the ship itself was trying to communicate with her. She thought back to her training, trying to remember anything that might explain what was happening. 3 years ago, she had been part of a classified project studying alien artifacts that had been found on various worlds. The project was led by Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a brilliant scientist who had become Kate's mentor and friend. Elena had theories about the artifacts that most people thought were crazy. "I think these devices are older than we realize," Elena had said during one of their late-night research sessions. "Some of them seem to respond to human interaction in ways that don't make sense. It's like they were designed for us." Kate had laughed at the time. "Come on, Elena, you're saying aliens built technology specifically for humans? That's impossible." But Elena had been serious. "Think about it, Kate. We find these artifacts on worlds that have been dead for thousands of years. They're more advanced than anything we've ever seen, but somehow our people can operate them when other species can't. There has to be a reason." Now, standing in an alien prison cell with technology responding to her voice, Kate wondered if Elena might have been right. She thought about the research station where she had been captured. The team had been investigating energy readings that seemed to come from human-made equipment, but that was impossible. Humans had never been to that sector of space before. Kate pressed both hands against the wall and spoke in a normal voice. "I don't know what you are, but I can tell you're trying to communicate with me." The humming grew louder, and Kate felt the vibration increase. The symbols on the floor began to move, rearranging themselves into patterns that looked almost like writing. She couldn't read them, but something about them seemed familiar, like a half-remembered dream. "This is insane," she said, but she didn't pull her hands away. The wall under her palms grew warmer, and Kate heard something that made her heart skip. It was a voice, barely audible, speaking in a language she didn't recognize. But somehow, she understood what it was trying to say. "Welcome home." Kate jerked her hands back and stumbled backward. "What did you just say?" The humming stopped, and the lights returned to their normal brightness. The symbols on the floor went back to their original positions, and everything looked exactly as it had before. Kate stared at the wall, her heart pounding. "I'm losing my mind," she whispered. "The pain inducers must have damaged something in my brain." But deep down, she knew that wasn't true. Something was happening here, something the aliens didn't understand. The ship was responding to her in ways that seemed impossible, and she was beginning to think it might be her only chance of escape. Kate spent the next several hours experimenting. She discovered that the ship responded more strongly when she spoke in a calm, confident voice. Whispers didn't work as well, and shouting seemed to shut down the response entirely. It was like the ship was learning her voice, getting used to her presence. She also noticed that different phrases produced different reactions. Technical terms from her engineering background seemed to get the strongest response, especially when she talked about power systems and navigation. It was as if the ship recognized her knowledge and was trying to connect with her through her expertise. The most disturbing discovery came when she tried speaking in different languages. Kate was fluent in English and Spanish, and she had learned some basic Chinese during her military training. But when she spoke in those languages, the ship barely responded at all. It was English, specifically her voice speaking English, that seemed to trigger the strongest reactions. "Why English?" she asked the empty cell. "Why me?" The lights flickered again, and Kate heard the whispered voice once more. This time, the words were clearer, though still in that strange language she somehow understood. "You are one of us." Kate sank down onto the floor, her mind reeling. Nothing made sense anymore? She was a human engineer from Earth, captured by aliens and held prisoner on their ship. She had no connection to this technology, no reason why an alien vessel would recognize her voice or respond to her presence. But the evidence was right in front of her. The ship was trying to communicate with her, and it seemed to know her somehow. Kate thought about all the classified projects she had worked on, all the alien artifacts that had seemed to respond to human touch. Elena's theories about ancient connections between humans and advanced technology. "Elena," she whispered, "I wish you were here. You'd know what to do." The lights pulsed once, gently, as if the ship was trying to comfort her. Kate wiped tears from her eyes that she didn't remember shedding. She was alone on an alien ship, light years from home, with technology that seemed to recognize her as something more than just a prisoner. Heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. Kate quickly moved away from the wall and sat in the center of her cell, trying to look defeated and helpless. The lights returned to normal, and the humming stopped completely. Commander Vextar appeared outside her cell, flanked by 2 guards. His scales were a neutral brown color, which Kate had learned meant he was in a relatively good mood. That was never a good sign for her. "I hope you have had time to reconsider your position, human," he said. "Today's interrogation will be more intensive than yesterday's." Kate looked up at him with tired eyes. "I told you yesterday, and I'll tell you again. I won't betray my people." The commander's scales shifted to a darker color. "We shall see. Lieutenant Grix has prepared some new techniques that should prove quite persuasive." As the guards activated the cell door and prepared to escort her to the interrogation room, Kate noticed something that made her pulse quicken: the control panel that operated her cell flickered slightly when Commander Vextar touched it, and for just a moment the symbols on it rearranged themselves. The ship was still responding to her, even in the presence of the aliens. Whatever was happening, it was getting stronger. Kate allowed herself a small smile as the guards grabbed her arms. She might be a prisoner, but she was beginning to think she wasn't as powerless as her captors believed. The ship knew her voice. And somehow, she was starting to understand what it was trying to tell her. Kate lay on the floor of her cell, pretending to be unconscious. The second day of interrogation had been even worse than the first. Lieutenant Grix had used devices that made her feel like her bones were being crushed from the inside. But she had held out again, giving them nothing but her name and rank. The aliens had finally given up and dragged her back to her cell 3 hours ago. Since then, she had been waiting for the right moment. She had noticed that during the night cycle, only 2 guards patrolled this section of the ship. They walked past her cell every 20 minutes, barely glancing inside. Kate counted the seconds in her head. 18 minutes since the last patrol. She had 2 minutes to act. She crawled to the clear wall and placed her hands against it. "I need your help," she whispered. "Can you get me out of here?" The wall warmed under her touch, and she heard the familiar humming sound. The symbols on the floor began to glow brighter, and Kate felt that strange, tingling sensation in her chest. Again. "Please," she said. "I don't know what's happening between us, but I need to understand. Can you open this door?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then Kate heard a soft clicking sound, and the energy barrier that formed the door to her cell flickered. It didn't disappear completely, but it became translucent, like thick fog instead of solid glass. Kate's heart pounded as she reached out and touched the barrier. Her hand passed through it easily, though she felt a slight resistance, like pushing through water. She looked down the corridor in both directions, then stepped through the opening. The moment her feet touched the corridor floor, the symbols beneath her began to pulse with a soft golden light. Kate had never seen them do that before. It was as if the ship was guiding her, showing her which way to go. She followed the glowing symbols down the corridor, moving as quietly as possible. The ship seemed to sense her need for stealth. The normal blue lights dimmed automatically as she passed, and she could hear the soft humming that had become familiar to her. The corridor led to a junction where 4 passages met. Kate hesitated, unsure which way to go. The symbols on the floor formed an arrow pointing to the right, toward a section of the ship she had never seen before. As she walked deeper into the ship, Kate noticed that the architecture was changing. The walls in her cell block had been smooth and uniform, with that artificial blue glow. But here, the walls were different. They were made of a darker material that seemed to absorb light, and they were covered with intricate patterns that looked like they had been carved by hand. "This is older," she whispered to herself, "much older." The symbols on the floor led her to a large circular room with a domed ceiling. Kate stepped inside and gasped. The walls were covered with what looked like star maps, but they were unlike anything she had ever seen. Lines of light connected thousands of points, forming a three-dimensional network that filled the entire space. In the center of the room was a pillar made of the same dark material as the walls. It was covered with symbols that looked similar to the ones on the floor, but these were more complex, more detailed. Kate approached it slowly, feeling drawn to it in a way she couldn't explain. "What is this place?" she asked. The pillar began to glow, and Kate heard a voice that was different from the whispers she had heard before. This voice was clearer, more defined, though it still spoke in that strange language she somehow understood. "This is the heart of the ship," the voice said. "The place where all knowledge is stored. You have found your way home, child of the void." Kate stepped back, her mind reeling. "Child of the void? What does that mean?" "I'm from Earth. I'm human." The voice seemed to laugh, though it wasn't an unpleasant sound. "Human, yes, but not as you understand it. Your species has forgotten its true nature, forgotten the time when you sailed between the stars as easily as you now sail between continents." Images began to appear in the air around Kate. She saw vast ships traveling through space, their design similar to the room she was standing in. She saw humans working alongside strange machines, their faces marked with symbols that glowed like the ones on the floor. "I don't understand," Kate said. "Humans have never been to space before. We only developed spaceflight 50 years ago." "Your recent history, yes," the voice said, "but not your true history. Long ago, before your world was young, humans were. The builders, the architects of the great network that connected all worlds. You created ships like this one, machines that could think and feel and remember." Kate stared at the images floating around her. The humans in the visions looked like her people, but they were clearly more advanced. They wore clothing that seemed to be made of light itself, and their technology was far beyond anything Earth had ever produced. "If this is true," Kate said, "then what happened? Why don't we remember?" The images changed, showing scenes of destruction and chaos. Kate saw the same advanced humans fighting against something dark and terrible, creatures that seemed to be made of shadow and hunger. The battles were fought across entire star systems, with weapons that could destroy planets. "The Devourers came from beyond the edge of the galaxy," the voice explained. "They consumed everything in their path, turning whole worlds into empty husks. Your ancestors fought them for 1,000 years, but the cost was too great. In the end, they chose to hide rather than face extinction." Kate watched as the human ships scattered across the galaxy, their crews going into some kind of sleep. She saw Earth, young and green, being prepared as a refuge world. The advanced humans gave up their technology and their memories, becoming simple farmers and hunters. They made themselves forget," she whispered. "They gave up everything to survive?" "Not everything," the voice said. "They left markers hidden in the blood of their children. When the time was right, when humanity was ready to reclaim its birthright, the markers would activate. The ships would recognize their true masters again." Kate looked down at her hands, thinking about all the alien technology she had been able to operate throughout her career, the artifacts that had responded to her touch, the systems that had seemed to understand her intentions before she spoke them. "That's why I can do this," she said. "That's why the ship responds to me." "You carry the blood of the builders," the voice confirmed, "as do many of your kind. But you are the first to find one of the great ships, the first to hear the call of the void. You are the awakener." The pillar in the center of the room began to pulse with a brighter light. Kate felt drawn to it as if it was calling her name. She reached out and placed her hand on its surface. The moment her skin touched the pillar, Kate's mind exploded with information. She saw the layout of the entire ship, understood its systems and capabilities. She learned that the Zephyrians had found the ship drifting in space and had spent decades trying to unlock its secrets. They had managed to activate some of the basic systems, but the ship's true power remained hidden from them. "They don't know," Kate gasped. "They think they captured this ship, but it was waiting for them. It was waiting for someone like me." "The ship has been asleep for 3,000 years, the voice said, "but it remembers its purpose. It remembers what it was built to do. And now, with your touch, it can wake up fully. Kate felt the ship around her beginning to change. Systems that had been dormant for millennia were coming online. She could sense weapons powering up, shields strengthening, engines preparing for capabilities that the Zephyrians had never imagined. "But I'm still a prisoner," she said. "How can I use this knowledge to escape?" "You are not a prisoner," the voice said with something that sounded like amusement. "You are the captain of this vessel. You always have been. The Zephyrians are merely passengers who have forgotten their place." Heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor outside. Kate's heart jumped as she realized her absence had been discovered. She could hear alien voices shouting and the sound of many feet running toward the chamber. "They're coming," she whispered. "Then it is time for them to learn the truth," the voice said. "Place your hand on the pillar again, child of the void. Let the ship remember what it was built to do." Kate pressed her palm against the pillar just as the first Zephyrian guard appeared in the doorway. Sub-Commander Krill, the security chief she had seen during her interrogations, stood there with his weapon raised. His scales were bright red with anger. "Step away from that console, human," he hissed. "You have no idea what you are dealing with." Kate looked at him and smiled. For the first time since her capture, she felt completely calm. "Actually," she said, "I think I'm beginning to understand perfectly." The ship around them began to hum with power, and Kate felt the awakening. "Begin." Sub-Commander Krill stepped into the chamber, his weapon pointed directly at Kate's chest. Behind him, 4 more guards filed in, their scales all showing the bright red color of alarm and anger. Kate could hear more footsteps in the corridor. It sounded like half the ship's crew was coming to see what was happening. "I said step away from that console," Krill hissed. "You do not understand the forces you are playing with, human." Kate kept her hand pressed against the pillar, feeling the power flowing through it and into her. The ship's voice whispered in. Her mind, calm and reassuring. "Do not fear them," it said. "They cannot harm you now. You are under my protection." "Actually, I think I understand better than you do," Kate said to Krill. She felt strangely calm, despite having 5 alien weapons pointed at her. "Tell me, Sub-Commander, how long has your people had this ship?" Krill's yellow eyes narrowed. "What does that matter? We claimed it by right of conquest." "It belongs to the Zephyrian Empire now," Kate almost laughed. "Conquest? You found it drifting. Empty in space, didn't you? No crew, no resistance. You just boarded it and decided it was yours." "Silence!" Krill shouted. "You know nothing about our history." But Kate could see the truth in his reaction. The ship had told her everything when she touched the pillar. The Zephyrians had discovered the vessel 3 decades ago, floating dead in the void. They had spent years trying to understand its technology, managing to activate only the most basic systems. They thought they were using an abandoned alien ship, never realizing they were passengers on a vessel that was simply waiting. "You never wondered why some systems wouldn't respond to you?" Kate asked. "Why certain areas of the ship remained locked no matter what you tried?" Commander Vextar's voice boomed from the corridor as he pushed through the crowd of guards. "What is the meaning of this? Why is the prisoner out of her cell?" Krill turned to his superior. "Sir, I found her here, interfacing with the central control pillar. She somehow bypassed all our security measures." Vextar's scales shifted through several colors as he looked around the chamber. Kate noticed that many of the Zephyrians seemed nervous to be in this room. They stayed near the walls, avoiding the center where she stood. "This chamber has been sealed for 20 years, Vextar said slowly. "Our scientists determined it was too dangerous to access. How did she get inside?" "I didn't break in," Kate said. "I was invited." The commander's laugh was harsh and full of disbelief. "Invited? By whom?" "There's no one else on this ship but our crew." Kate smiled and pressed her other hand against the pillar. Immediately, the chamber filled with a deep, resonant hum that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The star maps on the ceiling began to glow brighter, and symbols appeared in the air around them, writing in languages that the Zephyrians clearly didn't recognize. "I was invited by the ship," Kate said. "By its true intelligence." "The one you've never been able to access? Because it was never meant for you. The humming grew louder, and Kate heard the voice speaking not just in her mind but aloud, filling the chamber with words that made the aliens step back in fear. "Welcome, Awakener," the voice said in perfect English. "I have waited long for one of my builders to return." Vexstar raised his weapon, his scales now a deep purple color that Kate had never seen before. She suspected it meant terror. "What is this? What are you doing to our ship?" "Your ship?" The voice responded, and now it sounded amused. "This vessel was built by human hands 3,000 years before your species developed language. You are guests here, nothing more." The chamber shook slightly, and Kate felt the ship's systems coming fully online for the first time in millennia. Through her connection to the pillar, she could sense weapon systems activating that the Zephyrians had never known existed, shields, or powering up to levels far beyond what the aliens thought possible. The engines were preparing for maneuvers that would exceed anything in the Zephyrian fleet. "This is impossible," Vexstar whispered. "Humans are a primitive species. You have barely developed space travel." The ship's voice laughed, a sound like music mixed with thunder. "Primitive? Child, your people learned to build in metal by studying the ruins my builders left behind. Every piece of technology in your empire has its roots in human engineering." Images began to appear in the air around them, showing the vast network of human ships that had once filled the galaxy. Kate watched the aliens' faces as they saw humans commanding fleets of vessels that made their greatest battleships look like toys. "We cataloged over 12 million worlds," the ship continued. "We built a network of gates that could transport vessels instantly across the galaxy. We created artificial intelligences that could think and dream and compose poetry. And when the Devourers came from the dark between galaxies, we fought them for 1,000 years." Vexstar lowered his weapon slightly. "The Devourers? We have legends about creatures from the void, but they are just stories." "Not stories," Kate said, the ship's memories flowing through her. "History. My people fought them to a standstill, but the cost was too high. So they chose to hide, to let the galaxy think humanity was extinct while they rebuilt in secret." She gestured to the star maps above them. "Every world marked in gold on these charts has a human colony. Hundreds of millions of people living quietly, waiting for the signal to return. And every ship marked in blue is like this one, waiting for a human voice to wake it up." Lieutenant Grix, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. "Even if this is true, you are still our prisoner. One human cannot threaten an entire Zephyrian battle fleet." Kate felt the ship's amusement through their connection. "Show them," the voice whispered in her mind. Kate nodded and spoke a single word in the ancient human language that the ship had taught her. "Illuminate." Every screen in the chamber lit up at once, showing tactical displays that the Zephyrians had never seen before. The images showed the Void Talon surrounded by 17 other Zephyrian vessels, all part of Commander Vexstar's battle group, but now Kate could see something the aliens couldn't. "Computer, identify human-built vessels in the surrounding fleet," she said. 12 of the 17 ships on the display turned green. The ship's voice filled the chamber again. 12 vessels of human origin detected. All are currently operating under foreign control with limited system access. Vexstar stared at the display in shock. "That's impossible. Those ships have been in our fleet for decades. We built some of them ourselves." "You retrofitted them," Kate corrected. "Added your own technology on top of ours. But the bones of those ships, their basic structure and power systems, are human. And now that I'm here, they're all listening to my voice." Kate spoke another word in the ancient language. "Recognize." The tactical display exploded with activity as 11 of the green ships suddenly began transmitting new signals. Their power output spiked far beyond normal levels, and Kate could see their weapon systems coming online with capabilities that should have been impossible. "No," Vexstar said, his voice barely a whisper. "This cannot be happening." Through the ship's communication system, Kate could hear confusion and panic from the other vessels in the fleet. Their crews were reporting system malfunctions, except they weren't malfunctions. They were upgrades, as the ships remembered what they had been built to do. I can shut down your entire fleet with a thought, Kate said calmly. Or I can destroy it. These ships were designed to fight the Devourers, creatures that could consume entire star systems. Your weapons and shields are nothing compared to what they're capable of. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of the ship's awakened systems. Kate could see the fear in the aliens' eyes as they realized their entire understanding of the galaxy had just been turned upside down. What do you want? Vexstar asked finally. Kate smiled. For now, I want you to contact Earth. I want you to tell them that Kate Morrison is alive and that humanity's time of hiding is over. And then we're going to have a very long conversation about how this galaxy is really going to work from now on. She pressed both hands against the pillar and felt the ship's full power flow through her. Around the chamber, more displays lit up, showing star charts that stretched across half the galaxy. Hundreds of worlds marked in gold, thousands of ships marked in blue, all waiting for the signal that their long exile was over. Welcome to the new age, Kate said. The age of humanity's return. The alarm sirens throughout the ship began wailing as reports flooded in from across the Zephyrian fleet. Kate could hear the panic in the voices coming through the communication system as ship after ship reported the same impossible situation. Their vessels were no longer responding to their commands. Sir, this is Captain Threx on the Dagger of Stars, a voice crackled through the speakers. Our engines just increased power output by 300%. Our weapon systems are showing capabilities we never knew existed. What are your orders? Commander Vexstar stared at the tactical display in horror. His entire battle group, the pride of the Zephyrian Third Fleet, was slipping out of his control. All ships, maintain position, he commanded. Do not engage any systems you do not recognize, but it was too late. Kate could feel the ships responding to her presence through the network that connected all human-built vessels. Each ship's eye was awakening after thousands of years of sleep, remembering its true purpose and capabilities. You cannot stop this, Kate said, her hands still pressed against the pillar. These ships have been waiting for someone like me too. Wake them up, they know who their real masters are. Lieutenant Grix raised his weapon again. Then we will destroy you before you can do any more damage. The moment he spoke those words, every light in the chamber flared brighter. The ship's voice filled the room with a tone that made all the Zephyrians step back in fear. You will not harm the Awakener, the ship said. She is under my protection, and I will defend her with everything I have. Panels in the walls slid open, revealing weapon systems that the aliens had never seen before. Thin beams of light emerged, not pointed at anyone yet, but clearly ready to fire. The message was clear: threaten Kate and face the consequences. Kate felt a surge of power flow through her as the ship's defensive systems came fully online. She could sense shields forming around her body, invisible but stronger than any armor the Zephyrians possessed. The ship was not just protecting her, it was making her part of itself. Stand down your weapons, she ordered, all of you. Vexstar looked at his officers, then slowly lowered his weapon. The others followed his lead, though Kate could see the hatred in their eyes. They were beginning to understand that their positions of power were built on a lie. Good, Kate said. Now let's talk about what happens next. Ship, open a communication channel to Earth. I am unable to comply, the ship's voice responded. Earth is beyond the range of normal communication from this location. Kate frowned. She had hoped to contact home immediately, but they were in a distant sector of space, far from any Earth colonies. How long would it take to reach Earth? At maximum speed using the enhanced drive systems now available, approximately 6 standard days. Enhanced drive systems? Vexstar asked. What enhanced drive systems? The ship's voice sounded almost amused. The drive systems you have been using represent approximately 12% of this vessel's actual capabilities. I have been operating in minimal power mode to avoid detection by hostile forces. Kate felt the ship's engines humming with new energy. Through her connection to the pillar, she could sense the incredible power that was now available. The ship Could move faster than anything in the Zephyrian fleet? Possibly faster than anything in known space? Show me what you can do, Kate said. Demonstration authorized. The ship replied. The tactical display changed to show their current position relative to the Zephyrian fleet. Kate watched as their ship, the Void Talon, began to move. But this wasn't the slow, careful movement she had expected. The ship accelerated so quickly that the other vessels seemed to be standing still within seconds. They had traveled a distance that should have taken hours. The ship performed maneuvers that should have been impossible, turning and spinning with the grace of a dancer despite its massive size. The Zephyrian crews on the other vessels could only watch in amazement as their former flagship demonstrated capabilities they had never imagined. Incredible, Vexstar whispered. We have had this ship for 30 years and we never knew it could do this. Because it was never yours, Kate said. It was waiting. Waiting for someone who could unlock its true potential. The ship slowed and took position at the center of the fleet formation. But now, instead of being just another vessel among many, it was clearly the dominant force. The other ships seemed small and primitive in comparison to the power it was now displaying. All ships in the fleet are now responding to the Awakener's commands, the ship announced. Shall I demonstrate their enhanced capabilities as well? Kate considered this. She could feel the other ships through the network, their A is slowly coming, online as they recognized her authority. But she also understood that this was a dangerous moment. Too much too fast could lead to panic and violence. Not yet, she said. Let's start with communication. Can you establish contact with the other ship A is? Communication channels opening, the ship replied. Suddenly, Kate's mind was filled with voices. 12 different ship A is, each one awakening. After millennia of sleep, each one eager to serve their human commander. The sensation was overwhelming at first, like trying to listen to a dozen conversations at once, but gradually, Kate learned to focus on individual voices. Each ship had its own personality, its own memories of the time before the Great Hiding. They told her about battles fought against the Devourers, about worlds they had helped to build, about the sadness of watching humanity retreat into the shadows. We have waited so long, one of the Ayas said. We began to fear that our builders would never return. The time of hiding is ending, Kate told them. But we must be careful. The galaxy has changed since our people went into exile. Through the ship network, Kate could access incredible amounts of information. She learned that the Zephyrian Empire controlled nearly a quarter of the galaxy, ruling over dozens of species that they had conquered or intimidated into submission. Other empires filled the remaining space, all of them built on technology they had found or stolen from human ruins. They're all using our technology, she said aloud. Every major civilization in the galaxy is built on the foundation of what humans left behind. Vexstar S scales had turned a sickly yellow color. This cannot be true. We developed our technology through our own research and innovation. The ship's voice filled the chamber again. Accessing Zephyrian historical records. Analysis complete. 87% of current Zephyrian technology is based on human designs discovered in archaeological sites. The remaining 13% represents minor modifications and improvements. Kate felt a mixture of pride and sadness. Her people had once been the dominant force in the galaxy, the builders and innovators who had connected thousands of worlds. But they had given it all up to survive, and now other species claimed credit for humanity's achievements. What do we do now? Vexstar asked. For the first time since Kate had met him, the Zephyrian commander sounded uncertain and afraid. Kate looked around the chamber at the alien faces watching her. These beings had captured her, tortured her, planned to execute her. But they were also just people trying to survive in a galaxy they didn't fully understand. Now we change everything, Kate said. We're going to contact Earth, and we're going to let humanity know that it's time to come home. And then we're going to have a conversation with every major power in the galaxy about how things are really going to work from now on. She pressed her hands more firmly against the pillar, feeling the ship's power flow through her. Ship, set course for Earth, maximum speed. Course laid in, the ship replied. Estimated arrival time, 5 days, 14 hours, 37 minutes. All ships, prepare to jump to hyperspace, Kate commanded. We're going home. As the ships around them began to power up their enhanced drive systems, Kate felt a surge of excitement mixed with determination. She was no longer a prisoner. She was the awakener, the first human to reclaim humanity's birthright among the stars. And she was bringing with her a fleet that would announce to the galaxy that humanity had returned. The journey home was about to begin. The journey to Earth took 5 days, but for Kate, it felt like both an eternity and no time at all. She spent every waking hour connected to the ship's systems, learning about the vast network of human technology that stretched across the galaxy. The other ship A's shared their memories with her, showing her worlds that humanity had built and then abandoned when the Devourers came. Commander Vexstar and his crew were confined to their quarters, though Kate made sure they were treated well. She had no desire for revenge, only for understanding. The Zephyrians were not evil, just ignorant of the truth. Like children playing with toys they didn't understand. We are approaching the Sol system, the ship announced as Kate stood in the command chamber. Detecting multiple human vessels on patrol? They are hailing us. Kate took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been dreaming about for 5 days. Open communications. A human voice filled the chamber, speaking with the crisp authority of Earth Defense Force training. Unknown vessels, you are entering restricted space. Identify yourselves immediately or you will be fired upon. Kate smiled. Even after everything she had learned about humanity's true history, it was good to hear a familiar accent. This is Engineer Kate Morrison, Earth Defense Force, serial number 7-7-4-9-Alpha. I'm commanding a small fleet of recovered human vessels, and I have urgent information for Earth Command. There was a long pause. Kate could imagine the confusion at the other end of the communication link. A missing engineer commanding a fleet of alien ships was probably not something they trained for. Kate Morrison, the voice finally responded. You were reported missing in action 6 days ago after your research station was attacked. How did you acquire command of alien vessels? It's a very long story, Kate said, and one that's going to change everything we thought we knew about humanity's place in the galaxy. I need to speak with Admiral Lisa Carter immediately. Admiral Carter had been Kate's commanding officer when she first joined the Defense Force. More importantly, she was one of the few people in Earth's military who knew about the classified alien artifact projects. If anyone would understand what Kate had discovered, it would be her. Stand by, the voice said. We're patching you through to Earth Command. Minutes passed. Kate watched through the ship's sensors as Earth Defense Force vessels took positions around her fleet. They were small ships compared to what she now commanded, but seeing them filled her with a warmth she hadn't felt since her capture. Kate Morrison, a familiar voice said over the communications system. This is Admiral Carter. It's good to hear your voice, but I have to say, your current situation raises some very interesting questions. Kate laughed, feeling tears of relief in her eyes. Admiral, you're not going to believe what I've discovered. Do you remember Dr. Elena Rodriguez's theories about the artifacts? About humanity having ancient connections to advanced technology? I remember, Admiral Carter said carefully. Are you telling me she was right? She was more right than any of us imagined, Kate said. Admiral, I'm standing on the bridge of a ship that was built by humans 3,000 years ago. And it's not the only one. There are thousands of them scattered across the galaxy, all waiting for human voices to wake them up. The silence that followed was so long that Kate wondered if the communication link had been cut. Finally, Admiral Carter spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. Kate, are you absolutely certain of what you're saying? I've seen the star charts, Admiral. I've spoken with the ship's AI, learned about the network that our ancestors built. Humanity wasn't always confined to one world. We were the builders, the architects of galactic civilization. And when a terrible enemy forced us to hide, we scattered our technology across thousands of worlds and programmed it to wait for our return. Through the ship's sensors, Kate could see more Defense Force vessels arriving. Word was spreading quickly through Earth's military command. She suspected that within hours, every major government on Earth would know about her claims. Kate, I'm ordering you to proceed to Earth orbit immediately, Admiral Carter said. We need to debrief you completely and examine these vessels you've brought with you. Understood, Admiral. But there's something else you need to know. I'm not the only human who can activate this technology. The genetic markers are scattered throughout our population, and there are other human colonies out there, colonies that have been hiding for thousands of years, waiting for the signal to return. Kate activated the ship's communication array and spoke a command in the ancient human language she had learned. Network Activation Protocol. Identify all human settlements within communication range. The response was immediate. Signals began appearing on the ship's displays as hidden human colonies responded to her call. Worlds that Earth had never heard of, populations that had maintained their secrecy for millennia, all suddenly announcing their presence. My God, Admiral Carter breathed as the signals reached Earth's monitoring stations. There are dozens of them, hundreds of them. The age of hiding is over, Kate said. Humanity is coming home. As Kate's fleet approached Earth, she could see the planet she had been born on with new eyes. It was beautiful, blue and green and perfect, but it was also small. Just one world among the thousands that humanity had once called home. The ship's communication system activated again, and Kate heard a voice she had been hoping to hear for days. Kate Morrison, this is Dr. Elena Rodriguez. I'm aboard the science vessel, Columbia. Permission to come aboard your ship? Kate felt her heart skip. Elena, permission granted. I have so much to tell you. Within an hour, Kate was embracing her old mentor in the ship's docking bay. Elena looked older than Kate remembered, her hair more gray, but her eyes were bright with excitement and wonder. I knew it, Elena said, tears streaming down her face. I knew there was something more to those artifacts, but this... Kate, this... is beyond anything I ever imagined? Kate led Elena to the command chamber, where the ship's AI greeted her old friend with courtesy and respect. Elena gasped as she saw the star charts and data displays, the evidence of humanity's ancient empire spread out before her. We built all this, Elena whispered. We built all this, Kate confirmed. And now we're going to reclaim it. Over the following days, Earth was transformed. Ships arrived from the hidden colonies, bringing humans who had maintained advanced technology throughout the long exile. They shared knowledge that had been lost for millennia, showing Earth's people how to operate the artifacts that had puzzled scientists for decades. The galaxy's major powers watched in shock as humanity revealed its true capabilities. The Zephyrian Empire, faced with the knowledge that most of their fleet was actually human-built and could be controlled by human commanders, quickly agreed to negotiate. Other empires followed suit, realizing that their own technology could be turned against them just as easily. Kate found herself at the center of it all, the first awakener, the woman who had brought humanity out of hiding. She worked with leaders from Earth and the colonies to establish new policies for dealing with the galaxy's other species. Not conquest, but cooperation. Not domination, but partnership. The ship that had once been called the Void Talon now bore its true name, the Z's legacy. From its bridge, Kate looked out at a growing fleet of awakened human vessels, each one adding its voice to the growing chorus of humanity's return. Commander Vexstar and his crew were released and allowed to return to Zephyrian space with a message of peace and cooperation. Before he left, the alien commander approached Kate one last time. I underestimated you, he said simply. I thought you were just a primitive prisoner. I was wrong, Kate smiled. We all make mistakes. The important thing is what we learn from them. As Vexstar's shuttle departed, Kate placed her hand on the ship's control pillar one more time. The AI's voice whispered in her mind, warm and welcoming. Welcome, home, child of the void. The galaxy has waited long for your return. Kate looked out at the stars, at the vast network of worlds that humanity would once again call home. The age of hiding was over. The age of humanity's return had begun, and Kate Morrison, once a prisoner, now stood as the herald of a new era among the stars.